former Vice Chancellor of HNB Garhwal University. Under his tenure, this state university got status from state university to central university. Sir was the chairperson of in various vice chancellor search committee, Government of India. Also the member of NET team, UGC, ICSSR. Professor Singh is versatile speaker and resource person. After the retirement, Sir is an active resource person of HRDC. So warmly welcome to Professor S.K. Singh, sir. Sir, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, dear participants, we'll start our interaction, and I will talk about the interconnectivity of teaching and research. It is a very interesting subject, though it is very apparent that all of you who have joined the universities or colleges in various states and various universities are already familiar with this subject. So I need not explain the main points involved in talking about the interconnectivity between teaching and research, because I assume that all of you have PhDs, or at least are doing PhD or have completed PhD. Some of you might be also guiding research and may have some students. So you are already familiar with the teaching and aspects for some years, and also for the research. So you know that they are related very intentionally. And in your interview, you might have felt that in your job interview or your interview for promotion, that not many questions are asked about teaching. Most of the questions are asked about your research, your publications, the number of publications, the quality of publication, the citations. Of course, the quality, there are certain parameters which are used to judge the quality, like citations, impact factor, and so on. So you are asked more about research rather than teaching, though even your primary job is teaching. So today it is taken for granted that all teachers who are appointed in the universities or in the colleges will have significant amount of research, both in quality and quantity, before they are appointed or for their promotion. And rightly so, because universities are centers of higher education and really for creation of knowledge. So if you are working in the university, you should be a participant in creating knowledge, new knowledge, something which will be useful for society. So the relationship is obvious. What I will be trying to explain to you, two things. In the first part, I will be telling you the history of this interconnectivity between teaching and research, how it evolved, at least in our country. And then, as I said, we all feel that teaching and research are, we all know that teaching and research are connected to each other. But what is the nature of this relationship? What is the nature of this connectivity? How does the research influence the teaching? How does the teaching influence research? Or the question is, do they influence each other at all? Or is there any relationship? Is there any interconnectivity? Has there been any pedagogical research being done in this subject? And if some pedagogical research has been done, then what is the result? And so that was the second part I will be telling. But obviously, all of you must have some feeling about this question. you have your own answer based on your own experience of teaching and research in your institutions, or by observing your colleagues, that what is the relation between teaching and research. So it is not a subject, a new subject. It is something for which you could be as much expert as I am, except that I have 50 years of experience. You may have 5 to 10 years of experience. That is what is the difference. I have experience in many countries, many institutions, state universities, central universities, and both ways. I mean, uh, as a participant and also as an observer. So, but otherwise, you are as qualified as myself to, to, to answer this question: that what is the connectivity between research and teaching? Uh, Now, these days, it is taken for granted, and if you look into the National Education Policy 2020, you see a lot of emphasis. By lot, I mean more than what it used to be. More emphasis has been put on research component. Not only a research component, but a productive research component. What I mean by productive research component, that you produce research which is applicable, which is useful. Of course, all researches are useful. Some researches are useful immediately within a span of 5 to 10 years. Some researches are useful, are applicable at the scale of 20 to 50 years. Some are even applicable at longer time duration. Because if you look at the Nobel Prizes which are awarded in sciences, which will be awarded probably next week, another 10 days for this year, that many of those awardees have done their work for which they have been awarded Nobel Prize 20 years or 50 years or sometimes even 90 years back. So you see, research is always productive. It's only matter of time. Uh, in fact, I had been a professor of physics. I still do some research, and we know that in our physics, some research is done in mathematics almost 100 years ago, have found application now, and they are very useful in doing things. So you see, I mean, it is not only the research has become applicable after 100 years, but it is a research in a different area, in a different field, in a field of mathematics. You may have many, you may know or may not know, there are many researches done in physics which has been applicable and productive in biology. So you see, I mean, it is a matter of short-sightedness to say that whatever research we are doing right now should be applicable, or what should be applied and should be very productive right away. So we take a longer view that most of the researches, not only in science and engineering, but also uh, in humanities and social sciences, like in psychology or economics, uh, many of the things which have been done long time back are are finding applications now. So my point of view is that even though our national education policy emphasizes the research component, also gives more importance to the patenting, to the innovation, patenting, and make it productive so that society can benefit. My point of view is that it is always so. It's a matter of time. So nowadays it has become mandatory for you to do research along with your teaching. One particular aspect of research is that research is a full-time job. Uh, Moreover, it is in addition to your teaching duties. Teaching, you may be assigned some maybe 15, 16 or 21 lectures per week. which you have to do, the classroom teaching or laboratory teaching or field work or project work. But research has no limitations like that. Research is completely voluntary on your part. You can spend almost 20 hours a day when you are awake, or you can spend 2 hours, 3 hours, depending upon your time. So research work is it, it's the activity of mind. Mind is always active. So you can always thinking about something, thinking about some problem, some projects which you are involved with. So I said it is a full time job. Uh, but you have to show something concrete. You cannot say that I have been doing this, I have been thinking about this, I have been trying to do this. Not that. You have to be productive. You have to show. You have to show in terms of research papers. You have to show in terms of something which you have created. So research is a sort of activity which is inherent to you. If you are interested in research, you will do it anyway. You will try to find out some time from your busy schedule to do that. Establish a lab, work in the lab. Many of us work in the lab off hours in the evening or in the night or Saturdays and Sundays when we are off from our teaching duties. So research is a sort of different type of game compared to the teaching. As I said, it is a full time. It occupies your mind. Even if you are doing something else, you are always thinking about some project, some problem. And so it's the nature of different intellectual activity as compared to teaching. I'll come to that. So, and this is the nature of university professors and university teachers that research should be a part of uh, your intellectual activity along with your teaching. But this was not always so. When I have to go into the history of higher education system in our country to elaborate on this point. Uh, that is how the universities were started. What was the aim and objective of the university? Was it teaching and research from the beginning? No. When the universities were started, of course, when the universities were started, they were centers of only teaching, either in our country or in the Western countries or in the Arab countries, where the development of university system is well documented and known to us. Of course, a similar system was being evolved or evolving in China and Japan, but we don't have much information about the university system in China and Japan, so I will not talk about that. But in Arab countries and Western countries, or even in our country, the university system, higher education system, evolved gradually into the present system. Of course, our university system or our higher education system is a little bit more complicated because of our history. We had our own system of higher education, which was being practiced in, let's say, university like Nalanda, even before that, university at Taxila. If you are a student of history, you already know all these things, but you are not a student of history. Let me tell you that Nalanda University was restarted again and inaugurated last year. Well, it has been in practice. It has been in existence for the last 7 to 8 years at the same place, adjacent place within 10 kilometers of the old ruins of the Nalanda in Rajgir district of Bihar. In Rajgir district of Bihar. But it was inaugurated formally only last year by our Prime Minister. And lot of interest was generated in our media. And lot of people who had no idea about Nalanda University, what was being done there, what was being taught there, what was research was being there, who were the visitors, who were the professors, came to know because of this inauguration and its coverage in the media. So you know that Nalanda was a very research and teaching both were very advanced stage. There were many visitors from Arab countries, from China and from Japan and many other places like Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. So we had a great tradition of research there. but in very, very limited way. The research was done in mainly astronomy or mathematics or logics, and that were the teaching. But even before that, we had the university system in Takshila. They also had Takshila is even many, I, 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 I think something like 800 years before Nalanda. So we had already the system there, and we know that Chanakya worked there, and he was a great economist, and his economic theory were developed. So we had a very long tradition of research and teaching. But even before that, when we had the Gurukul system, at that time there was no research, but there was a teaching done mainly for the religious studies, religious jurisprudence, means how to be a good person, how to have a good life, how to uh, obey the laws of the society, and how you are punished if you don't obey the law of the society. That is the law or jurisprudence that was being practiced in Indian universities. Similar was the situation in Western countries, even though not that old as India. But when the universities started there, roughly in 10th century or so, that uh, we had the record of. They were started mainly in what is present now Spain. Um, and they were started because you know that Spain was under Muslim rule before 14th century. It was in 14th century that Muslims were defeated in Spain, and the Christianity took over the Spain. So the Western education system really started from Spain and then spread to Italy and France and England. So University of Toledo in Spain, or University of Salamanca in Spain, and University of Bologna in Italy, University of Rome, University of Paris, Oxford, Cambridge. They were started around 10th century. So their education system was more or less ours, because ours was independently developed. But as I said, since Muslims were dominating Spain, and more or less Arab system was sort of started there. Arab science, Arab engineering, Arab institution of higher system are very advanced in those days. So those Islamist education institutions, on that basis, the universities in Spain and uh, Portugal, cities of that, they will start it. So what I'm trying to say that they were also started on religious lines. The main emphasis there were religious studies, and then jurisprudence, law, and as you know, in Arab countries also the mathematics and astronomy and logic was the very advanced stage. So that is how the system started in the West as well as in the East. Uh, but along the line, there was a German philosopher scientist called Wilhelm von Humboldt who started this idea that the universities are center of higher education. Therefore, they should not only engage in teaching, but they should also engage in research. Of course, research as such was not mentioned, but what they said that we are doing teaching, we are imparting knowledge to others who are not knowledgeable. So we are sort of disseminating knowledge. We are learning ourselves what is present in the society, and then we are communicating it to others. Dissemination of knowledge, acquiring knowledge in the universities, and after acquiring knowledge, we are communicating this knowledge to disseminate it to others who are less knowledgeable. But we should not do only communication of knowledge and acquiring the knowledge, but we should also create knowledge, because we are the intellectual segments of the society. We are the one who are educated. We are the one who have knowledge. We are the one who are dealing with knowledge. So therefore, we should also involve ourselves in the creation of knowledge. So uh, Wilhelm von Humboldt model in Germany was started by many institutions, and that was later imported to the United States. Similarly, in England, there was a human. He was a priest, and since only religious education, religious jurisprudence was practiced in the universities, he advocated first that we should expand our scope of teaching from religious teaching and jurisprudence to the humanities and social sciences. So, humanities and social sciences uh, teaching was started in England around that time. Uh, and before von Humboldt time, and when the von Humboldt's idea was caught up in the so-called mainland Europe. Mainland Europe means other than the island of England. So they saw the effect of this research component on teaching campuses. Uh, they saw the dominance of Europe in knowledge creation, in research. So Newman also started this model of teaching and research, both in the higher education institutions or the universities at that time. So that was the situation in Western countries. In our country, as I said, we already have tradition, started documented history of higher education and research, starting from Tachila to Nalanda. You know, at the time of Nalanda, there were many universities, at least 10 universities in that belt. Today, belt which is now can be recognized around Bihar, Orissa, and Andhra. That belt had 7 to 8 universities, Nagarjuna University and Vikramshila University, Nalanda University. There are many. So they were all doing this um, teaching and research, but as I said, mainly concentrating on very few areas. These were the institutions started by the Buddhist monks and Buddhist uh, Buddhist people. Uh, you see what happened in India that after that Islamists came in around 12th century when Islamists, the Muslims dominated, captured came to India. They imposed Islamic Arab system of education. So along with the Takshila and Nalanda type of institutions, we also had the institutions which were based on the Islamic education system. So we just expanded our religious studies from Buddhism and Hinduism to Islam. But emphasis, as I said, in Arab countries was also the same, the religious and mainly some subjects like astronomy, mathematics, logic, so on, linguistics, so on and so forth. So those traditions were already existing in Indian universities, but because of Islamic influence, they also started teaching and research in those subjects. So our university system was richer as well as teaching and research is concerned, because Western was really based on the Christianity. Arabs were based on the Islam, Islamic tradition. In India, we had Islamic tradition, we had the Christian tradition, we also have Hindu tradition, we also have Buddhist tradition. So we had richer structure in our higher education as compared to the West or Arab countries. And that is why we advanced in research as compared to other countries in those days. Uh, if a great change took place when the East India Company started establishing institutions and started, let me say, of course, ruling India. When they started ruling India or controlling Indian governance and also the education system, then they started uh, university. So our present university or university system or the thinking in universities based on what people in the East India Company uh, created. Of course, they were based on British system of education, British system of universities, but the aim and objective was completely different. That is why nature of universities, the structure of the university, the nature of instructions, the nature of teaching, the nature of research was completely different as compared to the British university like Oxford and Cambridge. So one of the reasons that we could not become Oxford and Cambridge is today was because of the university system, which was started the East India Company, was completely faulty, was completely lopsided. And I hope many of you know why it was lopsided, why it was faulty, because it was based on the Macaulay's concept of higher education, Macaulay's concept of education. Most of you probably would be knowing what was the Macaulay's concept, what was his uh, theory of education or theory of higher education, which was implemented by Lord Bentinck in 1857, around that. The first universities were established by East India Company in 1857, right after the first war of independence, or the Sepoy Mutiny, as the British said. So after 1857, when there was a great turmoil in our country for independence, which failed, the British or the East India Company was completely uh, threatened, and they thought that they have to change their style of governance, and that is why they thought of creating a society of people who were Indians, but they thinking they were British, but they were not thinkers. They were just thinking for the British. So what they created, what we call today babus. They created babus, they created clerks, they, they created a certain class in our society which was working for them and not threatening them. They're working for them, but they were basically Indians. So they created a buffer class between the Indian society and their own society, which was working for them. So uh, their aim was to teach these people their culture, English, so that they can work with them. And since they were Indians, they have their the psyche, the thinking, Indian thinking, so they could better rule the country through them. So that a class was created, and to train these people, these universities were started. So these universities what were started in 1857. Basically, the first was Calcutta University, Bombay University, and Chennai University. Later, Allahabad and Lucknow University was also started. Of course, our university, like Aligarh Muslim University, was also started around that time, around 1920s. But it was started by Sir Syed Ahmad, which was completely, it was not a government institution. It was started by Muslim organizations, but it was supported by the government. But the aim of these universities and many colleges which were opened by the East India Company and later in the British Raj was to create babus, not to, to create knowledge. That was the faulty thing. That was the fault line which started with the Macaulay's thinking. Macaulay's thinking was to rule here using Indians. So that is why our excellence level has not reached the excellence of Oxford and Cambridge, because the conceptual thinking of starting university was completely different. And that is why many other colleges, the universities were opened by them as well as by Hindu institutions, Hindu thinkers or in Muslim leaders or Hindu leaders or Christian leaders in our own country. They started, of course, their own institutions, uh, non-governmental institutions, but they also followed the policies of the government institution because, I mean, the job opportunity, getting job was more important at that time. So they also followed the same line of instruction as followed by the government institutions like Calcutta University or Chennai University, Madras University or Bombay University at that time. So that is the history of our education system. Uh, so there was not much research done here because that was not the aim of the universities. Mostly it was the teaching universities. And not only that, they were mostly arts and social sciences colleges. There were no science and engineering institutions open. By no, I mean very, very few science and engineering colleges opened instruction in science and engineering were given in very, very few universities, because that was not the aim of the British people. That was not the aim of the East India Company. Um, uh, to start the higher education. Uh, of course, uh, some research was being done because human mind is, human brain, human mind is very, very creative. So people who are working in these institutions, as I said in the beginning, they were engaged in research as well because of as an intellectual activity, but there was no institutional support for the research activities in these institutions. So there was a very minimal research. Mostly it was teaching, and that was sort of interconnectivity. That was the relationship between teaching and research uh, at that time when the universities were started in around 1857 or 1860. Um, and that's the system followed because the rulers were following that principle. So the intensity was there, but it was very minimal, not much as it is. Things changed a little bit after independence. Why? Because after independence, things change very little, not much. Why not much? Because after independence, it was found that our country is almost a backward country as far as education is concerned, uh, and the literacy rate was very low. Literacy rate was very low. Large section of society, large section of society uh, was deprived of the education, deprived of the higher education. Therefore, the main aim of our university system was to provide education to all the sections of the society, to all parts of the country, uh, and to especially the weaker sections of the society. So after independence, there was a great expansion in education, but that expansion in education was more at the primary level and the secondary level, uh, and not as a higher education level. So because the main aim of education at that time was connectivity. Mr. Sharat Chaudhary, will you fix your system? It is disturbing. Hello, Mr. Sharat Chaudhary, please fix your system. Okay. So that was the reason that research did not pick up as much as it was expected to be. But the government of the time at the independence under Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, he was a very scientific person, thinking. So, and he had realized the importance of research. So many institutions were opened exclusively for research uh, under Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, and also with the Indian Council of Agricultural Research and the Indian Medical Council. Hello, Mr. Sharat Chaudhary. Mr. Sharat Chaudhary, please fix your system. Please unmute. Mr. Chaudhary, please unmute. Hello. Hello, Mr. Chaudhary, please unmute your. It's not listening to us. Mr. Chaudhary, can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello, Mr. Chaudhary? Mr. Sharat Chaudhary? Mr. Sharat Chaudhary, please fix your system. Okay. So that was the situation after independence. So many institutions were started purely for research. and the research was promoted in those. So we had institutions, two types of institutions in our country. There were universities and colleges where mainly teaching was being done, little bit of research was being done, and little bit of research was being done. And on the other hand, institutions, there were institutions where there were institutions where
अंकुर देखा बाहर गार्ड खड़ी है दोनों तरफ.
Mr. Chaudhary, Mr. Chaudhary.
हेलो सर. हेलो.
अरे
जी
मज़ाक,
सर. हेलो
उनको रिमूव करो यार, ये बहुत डिस्टर्ब कर रहे हैं.
सर. आप
Okay, so there were two types of institutions in our country. There were universities where research was being done, little bit research, mostly teaching, and then there were research institutions which were opened by the government through Council of Scientific and Industrial Research or Indian Agricultural Research Institute, or by Department of Atomic Energy, or by Indian Medical Councils like AIMS, where there was only research, no teaching. So you see, the research and teaching were more or less decoupled. You had one universities where you had, you had on one hand you had research institutions where no students, only research. Where research was done by full-time scientists, that they were full-time job. On the other hand, there were universities in which there were many students and professors who were doing teaching and a little bit of research. Not much. But a unfortunate thing happened because these research institutions were opened with a lot of infrastructure, a lot of money, a lot of resources, and there you had to do research full time. There was no other activity. Almost 24 hours you have to engage in research, officially in the day and maybe unofficially whenever you want. So all the people who were working very actively in research in the university switched to these institutions because they were more interested in research. There were more facilities, infrastructure, financial as well as academic, more equipment. So they all moved from the university to the research institutions. So whatever research was being done in the universities and colleges, that also more or less disappeared. So there was a good thing that research institutions were opened to give a boost to the researchers. But on the other hand, the university was deprived of the research component which was being done. So the situation between the interconnectivity between teaching and research from Indian perspective was minimized. That became minimal. Of course, there were some people still doing research in the university because they stayed or they decided to stay because of various other reasons, because of their personal reasons, they didn't want to leave the place, so on and so forth. They were maybe older, or whatever the reason was, but there were very few people left in the university who were doing the research. Obviously, when after the Kothari Commission in 1964, when more emphasis was put on universities and colleges and the promotion of research, because see, research is done for doing research and active research and quantitatively very large amount of research. You need a large manpower, and the manpower comes from the students, and the students are in the universities. But unfortunately, there is no infrastructure in the university. So that was realized by the Kothari Commission, and he said that the research should be promoted in the universities and colleges immensely. So a boost of to research was given the universities and colleges after 1964. And we have been promoting research in universities and colleges ever since. And now in the National Education Policy of 2020, there is um, more research component. You already know that the National Research Foundation has been established, which is now renamed as Anusandhan National Research Foundation. 50,000 crore rupees for the next 5 years have been planned. Of course, they were planned in 2020 and already 4 years have gone. But now from this year, they have already committed the money. So it has started now, even though 3-4 years late. But more money is available. Obviously, all 50,000 crore rupees for the 5 years is not available from the government. Only 30% of the money will be given by the government. 70% has to come from the industry. Of course, we have some contribution from the industry right now, but we are hopeful that after the implementation of national education policy in all the universities and colleges uniformly over the whole country, the industries will come forward and will uh, fulfill their commitments as envisaged by the government. In 70% of 50,000 crore rupees, then 34,000 crore rupees will be given by the industry during the period of 5 years, if not for 2020, at least from 2024. So in next 5 years, we think that the great enhancement of research activities will take place in um, our uh, our country. You already know there are many projected missions to achieve success in research has been already started, uh, like a mission in the artificial intelligence, quantum computing, the space research, atomic energy is already very active. So in addition to the atomic energy and defense research and also the uh, space research. In addition to that, new missions have been started, and hopefully, the result will be visible in next 3 to 4 years. So, and then the universities and colleges have to make great contribution to it, because I said the manpower relies best in the universities. There are the students who are doing their masters, they are doing their PhDs, and if they are retained in the universities, then there will be great boost for research. So I think a research cadre will be established in the universities, other than the professors and permanent faculties doing research. Of course, there is a fluid situation, fluid population of research students which are actively doing research for few years, for 4, 5 to 6 years, while they stay in the university. But hopefully there will be a permanent research cadre established in the universities also, which will be mostly project based. It is already there in IITs, but it is not present in the universities, mainly because of the lack of funds. But hopefully with this NRF funding, a lot of professors in the universities will bring projects, and those projects will be long lasting over a period of 10 to 15 years. And then there will be a research cadre available other than the PhD students. There will be a cadre of postdoctoral students, senior research associates, so on and so forth. We already have many school schemes for research beyond PhD at postdoctoral level. We have a lot of exchange programs where teachers can make use of them, especially the permanent teachers. So there are a lot of incentives. You should look into those incentives where you can do for collaboration with the foreign universities. Yeah, you can be funded. So there is a great scope for expansion in the teaching and research community, and the relationship is growing to grow stronger. So that is the situation right now. Of course, there are three types of institutions in our country: centrally funded, central universities, central institutions like IITs, ISARE, and ISARE, Indian Institute of Science and Education Research, where teaching and research is being done in a good amount. And the relationship between teaching and research is very rich. Then there are state universities where the funding is good, but not as good as the central universities, not as good as IITs. In fact, most of the money, central government money in the research goes to the IITs and ICER and these research institutions, some to the central universities, and then very little to the state universities. But since higher education is in the concurrent list, state government is also supposed to support research by their own fund. So state universities also are funded by state government as well as by central government. Then there are independent funding agencies uh, which support the research. And then there are deemed universities which are in the private sector as well as in the government sector. Some of them are quite active in research, but some of them almost have very little component of research. And then there are private universities. Private universities, you see, the main aim of private universities, private colleges were started in really science and engineering. Their main aim was to make money, and not there was almost no research component in these private universities. But now they have also realized the importance of original research being conducted in their institution, in their universities, their reputation, their ability to attract students also depends a lot on the research activities. So the utility of research component in higher education has been realized by the private institutions. And some of the good universities like Manipal University System or Amity University System in UP and Rajasthan, and some many other colleges and universities in private sector have also investing a lot of money in research in research activities. But a research culture has yet to be developed in the private universities, and I'm hopeful if in the next 20 years, if the research activities are uh, enhanced or taken up in the private universities, I think our country will be very much benefited by that. In fact, after all, United States, if you look in the United States, most of the research or most of the excellent research or leading research or innovative research or creative research is done in the private universities like Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Caltech. These are the leading institutions, which are all private universities. Of course, there are some government universities also, like University of California and Berkeley, or some other universities, Columbia universities, or New York universities, or Boston universities. They are the universities in the government sector. They're also competing, but not like MIT and Harvard and Stanford, which are all private universities. So I'm sure that if the importance of research is realized by the private institutions, they may be also the leading universities, leading institutions in our own country. Uh, very soon. In fact, two of the private universities are almost the leading universities in our country. One is the Manipal Institute, and other is the university in the Coimbatore. Both universities are one of the in the top 5 universities of our country. So very soon, I think the scenario of research in our country is going to change, because this 50,000 crore rupees which has been earmarked by the government for the research in the next 5 years is open to everybody. Anybody who is working either in private universities or in central university or in state institutions can make use of this. So if they are good researchers, good scientists working in private university, they can get more lot of money from this funding. So at least now, in principle, there is no lack of money. It's only the lack of will and lack of hard work, which is required to boost the research activity. So in future, I think the relationship between teaching and research is going to be very strong. Uh, uh, in central universities and state universities, as well as in the uh, private universities also. In recent years, in the last 2 to 3 years, I have seen, you might also notice that many universities are getting A plus and A plus plus. in north or in south, which means at least that there is some improvement taking place in the universities also, in the state universities and the private universities also, as far as research component is concerned. See, basically most of these institutions are teaching institutions. So I don't have to talk about the improvement in teaching. It is already there. We're only talking about the improvement in the research because that depends on many things which are not available presently in the private university system. We'll come to that later. So now let me come to the second aspect of my presentation. That is, what is the relationship between the teaching and research? Should there be any relationship? If there is any relationship, if there is any connection between these, what is that connection? It is positive, it is negative, or they are not connected at all. So this is a subject which should be researched, and some research has been done in United States, in UK, United Kingdom, also in Australia, New Zealand, Sweden, Denmark, but not much study has been done in our own country. Of course, the research in quantitative research in the relationship of teaching and research is difficult because this is education. This is research which has to be based on sample surveys. You have to take sample. You have to ask questions about stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? Stakeholders are the students. You have to ask the students what is the relationship between the teaching and research as far as your teachers are concerned. You have to ask questions in a sample survey from the teachers. You have to ask the questions about the sample survey from the administrators, like principals, vice chancellors, or directors of the institutions where people are working. And then you have to ask questions in the sample survey to the agencies which are funding the research. So there are a lot of stakeholders which have to um, be contacted, and survey has to be done. And then you have to really come to a conclusion that is there any connectivity between interrelationship between the teaching and research? If there is one, what is it? It is positive or it is negative? And then you have to quantify it. Quantify means you have to do a scientific survey. You cannot say, yes, there is some relationship and it is good or it is bad. Not that. You have to do you have to use statistical methods to do this correlation study. If you are a student of statistics, you will understand what I mean. You have to find a correlation between two variables. One variable is teaching, another variable is research. So you take two variables, X and Y, and find the correlation between them. You find for your sample, you find mean, you find standard deviation, you find correlation coefficient. And then you ask question, this correlation coefficient is positive, it is negative, or it is zero. And then you can say, quantify the relationship between teaching and research. But it's not easy. It is difficult. Why it is difficult? It is difficult for few reasons. Most important of them are, in order to do a sample survey, you have to prepare a questionnaire. You have to ask a lot of questions. Like, we're already familiar. There are so many sample surveys in election time being done. All the agencies are doing survey about voters' preferences. So they prepare the questionnaire of maybe 20 or 50 questions. They circulate to the participants, and they take their responses and do their analysis. So similar thing has to be done in research in this one. And then you have to prepare a questionnaire, and the questionnaire should consist of questions. And that question should be then formulated on the basis of uh, what is a good teacher? What defines a good teacher? What is a good teaching? So you have to define certain parameters which defines a good teacher. And then you have to define certain parameters which define a good researchers. Maybe 2 parameters, 3, 4 parameters. 3, 4, 5 parameters are good teachers. 3, 4, 5 parameters are good researchers. Then you have to ask the stakeholders from all the categories uh, their response to those questions, and then you have to do a statistical analysis of those responses. The pedagogically, that is how the research will be done. Research should be done to find a relationship, a mathematical relationship, a statistical relationship between teaching and research, and between the interconnection. That, as I said in the beginning, first to ask why there should be a relationship. Should there be a relationship? Again, as I said, you all have a certain feeling about this. You should have certain feeling about this question or answering this question, because you all have all teachers as well researchers, so you know what is the relationship. If your research helps in your teaching, does your teaching help your relationship, your research? So you have a certain feeling about the answer. But that would not be the general answer to the question. General answer to the question has to depend upon response of many people, so that you can generalize. Your feeling may be the same as the general feeling, but necessarily not be so. Like my feeling is that the relationship between teaching and research is positive, uh, and it is large. That's my own experience. There is also experience of many of my friends in my circle who are doing research in sciences. But that may not be true in general. When you ask many people, you ask students, you ask teachers, you ask administrators, you ask funding agencies. That may not be true. So that is why you have to standardize it. That is why you have to take these surveys and ask the question in a general way. But let me tell you, I don't know whatever your feeling is and why that feeling is. My feeling is that teaching and research both are intellectual activity of the human mind of a higher class. They are intellectual activity of higher class, and that is why they should be related. What I mean by that is, you see, as I said in somewhere in my lecture, that teaching means that you acquire knowledge throughout your life, throughout your study, and as a teacher, as a professor, you communicate to others who are less knowledgeable. So the teaching consists of acquiring knowledge and communicating this knowledge to others. While research goes a step further, a step ahead. Research means that you acquire knowledge, whatever is existing. You create knowledge, you create new knowledge which was not existing, and then you communicate. So while there are two types of intellectual activity involved in teaching, there are three types of activity involved in research. But both are teaching and research. Both are activities of human mind, intellectual activities at higher level. So they should be related, and that relation should be positive. So there are many ways where you can uh, enumerate how research is going to influence teaching and how teaching is going to influence research. For example, if you are active in research, then in your field, you know what are the most important topics in your field. So that you will concentrate in your teaching. You will concentrate in making syllabus. If you are a senior person, if you are involved in making the syllabus, then you will like to put those topics which are most important in your subject, with those topics which are more creative, those topics which are more relevant to the society's development. You will include them in your syllabus and you will include them in your teaching. But if you are not active in the research, you have no idea which topics are uh, more important, which topics are less important. You just take a book and start teaching from that book. Um, or if you are a senior person involved in syllabus making, you don't know what are the things priority wise, which should be included in your syllabus, which should not be included in your syllabus. So if you are active in research, you have this advantage. You have this advantage of knowing the priority of topics in your subject, which should be included in undergraduate, which should be included in the postgraduate um, syllabi, and they should be taught. So obviously, your research helps in teaching. Similarly, teaching helps in research because if you are teaching a class, then if you can control a class of 50 students, then you know 50 students or 100 students in your class, they have different level of intellectual activity and intellectual uh, tolerance and intellectual creativity. And then you have to devise a way to teach new things so that all of them can understand. And that helps in your research because if you're a research guide, you have 3, 4 students. All 3, 4 students will not be equally intelligent. Their intelligence level will different. So you know how to handle those students, how to mentor those students, and you have a good experience because you have been mentored almost 150 students in a class. So attending mentoring 4 to 5 or 10 people in your PhD batch will not be difficult. Another way the teaching can help in research is that if you are teaching a postgraduate class, obviously if you are a teacher, you will be teaching undergraduate classes as well as the postgraduate classes. So if you are teaching postgraduate classes, then you can really spot the creative students in your class whom you like to take for your PhD as your PhD students. So you don't have to take students which are not just do not have the research aptitude and we are not interested. Just depending on the marks they are recruited and given to you as a student. No, if you have taught the postgraduate classes, you can identify the students which are interested in your field, which are capable of doing research. Then, while picking the students for your research, you can be more selective and you can really get good students. So that comes from your teaching experience. Another teaching experience is that if you are able to communicate to a group of 50 people, obviously it will help you in communicating your research. If you have done some research, if you have done a good research, it's very important that you communicate it to others, you communicate to your colleagues, you communicate to other researchers. Not only that, you communicate to administrators, not only administrators, but you also are able to communicate this to your funding agencies because the money doesn't come for free. You have to struggle to get the money. You have to write a project. You have to defend the project. You have to talk about this to various people. You have to talk about your project to the people who matter. So that needs communication skill. So if you are teaching in a postgraduate class or in an undergraduate class, then you develop a good communication skill. So good communication skill is important to acquire, and that you can do by teaching a large class, whether it's undergraduate or postgraduate. So that's how the teaching can influence your research. As I said, research can influence your teaching in many ways because with the in your research activities, you can get new projects to your students in the postgraduate classes. You can give field work to your undergraduate classes. So there are many aspects of research which can be brought to um, your teaching. And this is very important in view of the National Education Policy 2020 because National Education Policy 2020 has introduced the 4-year undergraduate program. In 4-year undergraduate program, you have BSc as well as BSc Honors. And in the 4th year, you can also do BSc Honors by research. You can do also BSc by teaching or you can do by research. So research has been introduced now at undergraduate level so that the students which are very bright can benefit from that. So even in undergraduate classes, in undergraduate institutions, in postgraduate institutions, there has been introduced a research component. So see, you can use your experience in the research area to do project work, to do field work, to do other training. If you are actively research, you are in contact with researchers in other institutions which are purely doing research a good research institution, you can send your students for training to those institutions, and you will prepare better students. But if you are not active in research, you don't have contacts. You will not have contacts. You don't know how to prepare, how to send the students for for training, for field work, for project work to those people who are more qualified than you, who have more infrastructure as far as equipment is concerned, as far as library is concerned, as far as instruments are concerned. So if you are not active in research, you will not know about them, you will not be in contact with them, and will not be able to do a good job. You will have to depend upon others to help you in that. So that way research helps in teaching. So research and teaching, the relationship is very, very good, according to me, and the relationship should be positive. But it should not be necessarily the general conclusion. Uh, so let me come to that. We come to the last part, which is what is the result of this research? Whatever little research has been done on the subject, on the interconnectivity of teaching and research in various systems. What is the result? There has been some research done in US and Australia, US and UK and Australia, and as I said, Germany, Sweden and Denmark. Not much work has been done here in our country. But what is the result in that? Let me not go into detail. But the Denning Commission in UK, and there was another commission in United States, which did this survey, did this research, pedagogical research on the interconnectivity between teaching and research. What was the aim of this work? The aim of this work was not only curiosity, but it goes a long way from the curiosity. Reason in the United States Commission, which was established for this research, was that the feeling, most of the research work in the United States or in Western countries is funded by the private industry. Of course, there is some funding by government, but that's not much. Majority is by the industry. And there is the aim of our country also to get as much fund as possible. As I said, 70% it is envisaged that in next 5 years, the industry will support 70% of research, while the government will support only 30%. So all the funding agencies in the United States, really US Army and the Electronics Department and many IBM industry, IBM, Google, to just tell you the present situation in quantum computing, artificial intelligence, all the research is done by a company like NVIDIA, a company like Google, a company like Samsung. These are the ones who are doing most of the research in artificial intelligence and quantum computing, not the research funded by the government. So most of the funding is done by the private industry, and industry people who are interested that if they are giving fund to colleges and the university professors, are they making them, the funds making them better teachers? Because if they are making them better teachers, then by spending the same money, they are achieving two goals. That they are getting the research done, they are getting the innovation, they are getting new ideas, they are getting new patents, they are getting new products. But at the same time, they are producing new teachers, they are producing good teachers, they are producing better teachers. So that is going to help the society, they are going to help the university. So if the relationship between research and teaching is good, then it is worth spending more and more money. So if the relationship comes out to be positive between research and teaching, it will lead to a great boost in funding of research in every area, in every country. So that was the aim of the commission established in the United States and the United Kingdom. They submitted their report, and the report made 57 recommendations based on their findings. And later on, of course, this was 20 years old commission, around 99 or so. And then another committee was established to see how many of those recommendations have been followed. Anyway, that was, I said, the aim of funding agencies to do a research in this area. But I said that it is very important that research comes out of positive. It will be a great boost to the research, and it should be done. Now let me come to say to the results of those researches, those samples, surveys. What do they say? And you can guess the answer. Depending upon the survey, they got all answers. Some surveys got that is the relationship it is positive and it's large. Some of them got result that the relation is positive, was not very large, very, very small, very little relationship between, little connectivity between teaching and research. And some surveys found even the negative relationship between teaching and research, which means the good researchers um, did not make good teachers at that team. You might be surprised to hear this, but you can understand in better way, because if somebody is a very good teacher, very good researcher, then he gets more project, he gets more money, he has to spend more time in managing the money. Excuse me. He has to spend more time in buying equipment. He has to spend more time in hiring researchers, hiring students, hiring technicians, and if he's doing really good research, then he has to give lectures on those research to many people, he has to visit many institutions. So his time is spent more on research activity and less on teaching. So he spends less time on teaching. So obviously, if you get the students' response and the students find that the teacher is not attending all his classes because he's very busy, otherwise send somebody to take his classes, obviously he will be not satisfied and he will give negative response. So good research in that sense, very good research in that sense, leads to neglect of teaching, and neglect of teaching gives you a bad response. So it is possible that relationship in certain areas, certain cases come out to be negative. So as I said, all three types of such results were obtained, but this is not easy question to answer, even in sample survey, because that depends upon many factors. Like that depends upon first, what class you are talking about. The relationship between teaching and research in an undergraduate class will be different compared to postgraduate class. In a postgraduate class, in a science or engineering or medicine institutions, the result will be obviously very positive, because there is a small group of students, around 20 to 25 in your class. The teacher interacts with most of them most of the time, especially in medicine or in science or in engineering. He talks about researches which he has been doing. And because of more interaction, the relationship between teaching and research is positive, and it is large. There's more interaction. And they realize really that teacher has good knowledge, teacher has sufficient knowledge to tackle the subject. But in an undergraduate class, if he's teaching 50 students or 60 students, there's not much interaction. The teacher takes his class and goes away. There's no time to interact with 60 students. So therefore, the relationship obviously in an undergraduate class will be not positive. It might come out to be even zero, because the students may be really not knowing anything about the research activity of the teacher, because he doesn't talk about them. He doesn't, feels a need to talk about his research to undergraduate students. So if the question is asked about the undergraduate, you will get a null result. You might get a null result, especially if they are teaching humanities and social sciences. Humanities and social sciences, the class is even bigger. Class is even bigger, and the teacher takes his class and goes away to his office, to his home. So there is almost no interaction. So if the teacher is teaching an undergraduate class or a postgraduate class, the answer will be different. So it depends upon what stage you are talking about. You are talking about the relationship at the undergraduate level, you are talking about the postgraduate level, the answer will be different. Similarly, if you're talking about the science stream or talking about the medical stream, then the answer will be different. If you're talking about the humanities and science stream, the answer will be different. So you see, it depends upon the class, it depends upon the discipline, whether it is sciences or other discipline. So there would not be any general answer to the question. You have to specify the class, you have to specify the discipline, Then you have to specify also the type of institution. Type of institution, I mean, if it is central government institution, it's central university, you have more freedom to do research, you have more money to attend conferences, you have more money to advertise your own research, uh, uh, you have more facilities. So the relationship will be different. But if you are in a private institutions where there's a limited opportunities, you spend more time on teaching, less time on research, then your response will be different. So it also depends upon the type of institutions you are talking about the central government institutions or state universities institutions or the private institutions. So you have to qualify, you have to specify the type of institution. Uh, More important also, it depends upon the administration of the particular institution. If the administration is very strict that it does not allow you to travel for research, it doesn't give you fund for the research, it doesn't give you the freedom for research, it insists that teaching should be done, it takes all other activities from the teachers, which deprives them of not only research but also from teaching, then the relationship will be different. So it also depends upon the nature of the governance of the institutions. So there are so many factors which forbid giving a general answer to the question, what is the interconnectivity with research? But the question can be answered if you specify these things. So you have to ask a question, very specific question, that uh, what is the relationship, what is the interconnectivity between teaching and research in a science institution supported by the central government or supported by the state government or by the supported by the private institute. Or you have to ask question about specifying the class. What is the relationship between teaching and research and postgraduate classes? What is the relationship between teaching and research and the undergraduate class? Therefore, you have to specify more. And the answers in each category could be different. They could not be the same. But in any case, uh, to answer the question about interconnectivity between research is difficult, but it is answerable in a general way also, provided you specify the certain criteria, you specify the type of institution, you specify the type of discipline, you specify the class and so forth. So then it is not difficult. It can be answered. But unfortunately, I said such a research has not been done in our country. It should be done. It should be done, and it should be communicated to the authorities, to the funding agencies. It should be done by education department in every university, because situation may be different in Uttar Pradesh, it may be different in Bengal, West Bengal, it will be different in Tamil Nadu, and so on and so forth. So it should be done in every state where the governance of the institution is of different nature, and it should be conveyed so that the uh, funding agencies or authorities, the University Grants Commission or the State Higher Education Commission or the CSIR or DST or DBT, whatever the institutions, funding agencies are, um, uh, they, they, they know that relationship between research and teaching in a given institution. Because if the relationship turns out to be positive and large, then it will be great incentive to support research in these institutions, to support research in the university. So this will be, I personally feel that the relationship between them is positive and it is large. Hopefully it will be true in general surveys. And then it will be a great boost to increase funding by the funding agencies, by the government in the research in universities and colleges. So therefore, such a research should be done at a personal level. You can do research in your college, in your university, in your department, and do your little exercise for your own satisfaction. Obviously, your own experience would be that does your research make a good teacher for yourself or not? You can answer this question yourself. You ask this question yourself and give it answer. So this, I think, is a good topic which our organizers have chosen to discuss with you, to talk about you, and make you aware that the connectivity between teaching and research is going to be enlarged in the coming years, because more funding is given to research. And if you have more funding in the research, you have more freedom to teach, to research, to do other activities. So as a teacher, you will like to have more funding, and therefore you should like to have your research influence your teaching and take its benefit to the students, which you get from your research activities. So with these, I will close this and invite any questions if you have, because I think we are left with 5 to 7 minutes more. And in that, I think I will be very happy if you ask some questions, and I would like to answer them. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, any questions?
Okay, sir. I think no questions. सर, शिक्षण और अनुसंधान की अंतर संबद्धता के विषय को विस्तार से समझाने के लिए आज के इस सुंदर ज्ञानवर्धक विचारोत्तेजक व्याख्यान के लिए मैं रजनीश कुमार, सहायक आचार्य, विवेक कॉलेज ऑफ एजुकेशन और यूजीसी एमएमटीपी एएमयू एवं सभी श्रोताओं की ओर से प्रोफेसर एसके सर का तहे दिल से धन्यवाद करता हूं कि सर, आपने इतने कम समय में हम सबका शिक्षण और अनुसंधान की अंतर संबद्धता के विषय में ज्ञानवर्धन किया। इसके लिए सर एक बार पुनः आपका बहुत-बहुत आभार, साधुवाद, धन्यवाद सर।
Thank you all very much for being attentive in this session and spending
Thank you so much, sir.
hour and 1 hour and a half with me. Thank you very much.